All right, guys. Happy, I guess it's Tuesday, November 17th. We have a really special live stream planned. Um, we're gonna talk about some Jewish baseball and especially Jewish baseball cards. And who I have with me needs no introduction if you watch YouTube. But gentlemen, why don't you introduce yourselves and quickly talk about, I guess, what you collect and why, maybe.
Michael, you go ahead.
Well, I grew up a Reds fan back in the 70s. I watched the World Series in 75 and 76 and first started as a bench collector. And once I got back into it after a hiatus after college, um, I converted to Judaism in 1994, and I started getting an interest in Jewish players. And I just kind of, Hank was the first one. Everybody knew of Sandy Koufax, but I was reading articles about Hank, and it really just got interested in him, and I started reading more about him as a person. And I really admired the man, not only for him being Jewish and having those beliefs, but just because of the type of person he was. And we all know what Jackie Robinson went through with racism when he started. But before that, Hank was the guy that went through horrible anti-Semitism, and he got he got through that. In fact, there's a story you could tell how he first met Jackie playing in 1947. And he was with the Pirates, and he was an inspiration to Jackie. I don't just off the top of my head. I remember the quote they had from Jackie was when he was at first base with Hank, and Hank talked to him, and they asked him what Hank said to him, and he said, just hang in there. I'll get through this. And he said, class tells, class just exudes all over Mr. Greenberg. And it's just another example of how it's a great guy. He was just really, he served in World War II. Just a great man. I admire him very much, in addition to being a baseball player. And that's why, I love, Sandy's wonderful too. But Hank is always, I just think he's a great guy, great ball player, and a great role model for a lot of people. And that's why I follow him now. And that's love collecting, especially vintage stuff from him. It's just my favorite part of the hobby, to be honest with you.
All right, and I'm Sean Tieford at the channel of the same name. And growing up, I started really as a Phillies fan in the Philadelphia area, and my primary collection was actually Mike Schmidt. Now I have that kind of tucked away in the back and don't really buy much anymore of his. But over the years, as kind of I've grown in my Jewish identity, Jewish, whatever term you want to use, I started getting into more of the Jewish players, starting with, just like most people, go down this path with Sandy Koufax. And I kind of built a decent Koufax collection. But really my passion, baseball card-wise, was always pre-war. And slowly that kind of evolved, and seeing what different players were, and really latching on to Hank Greenberg, and really fully acknowledging both all the things that he did during his career within the community, having the same types of milestones that Koufax did, not playing on Yom Kippur, and getting a standing ovation when he goes to shul on that day. But also later on, he did, he was one of the, he's the first Jewish ball player to become an executive, if I remember correctly, and definitely owner, or part owner. And it's just really an astounding kind of journey that he made. And then since then, obviously, I still go after Greenberg quite often with the help of the other gentlemen on the stream. But then I also kind of go after a lot of the other Jewish baseball players that were in that played before the war, there's a surprising amount, and it's challenging just because they're harder to find, and sometimes it's quite interesting, especially when you're trying to track down autos. So that's been kind of my progression in the hobby.
Nice. Michael, would you want to share again with everyone who will watch the stream the story that you told Sean and I about the most famous Jewish baseball card?
Well, I got a picture of it, of course. I don't own it. It's a player called Geisen. Not a remarkable career, but his card's quite remarkable. It's a 1914 issue from the Baltimore News. It has a schedule on the back. It's the only one known to exist. I was reading an article about it. There's a gentleman named Jeff Ader who runs the Jewish Baseball Museum online. He keeps his cards at his restaurant, I believe. He runs a kosher restaurant that donates all his money to charity and such. And he found out that a gentleman named Dan McKee had bought it in 1995 at a card show for $2,500. Now, if you collect Major League Jewish players, there's a lot of ways to collect. But if you do just Major Leaguers that play the actual game in the Major Leagues and not just minor leagues, then he's won the checklist at the time. And he offered the gentleman $10,000–$15,000 for the card, which the owner declined. Dan knew that the card was of a Jewish player and knew that at the time it was the only one in existence. And if anybody wanted to complete a complete run for Jewish players, he would have to get this card. So, whether or not you think that's the right thing to do, he put it on eBay for $250,000. And he didn't get any offers, of course. But Jeff Ader comes along again and says, I really need this card. Can we work out a deal? He ends up offering $125,000 for the card. If Dan would take it to SGC, get it graded, authenticated, and all that sort of thing, which he did. It came back a 1 because it's got, you can see from the picture, there's it's a blue border, so it's got some wear. On the back, there's a little paper loss, so it got a 1. For whatever reason, Jeff decided to renege on the deal of the $125,000. It kind of started a little feud between the two that was in the news. If you Google it, you can read about it. And Dan later went on to say that this guy could offer him $1 million and he wouldn't take his card. So the interesting twist is that recently, the people that follow Jewish players, and there's a website that you really need to check out called JewishBaseballNews.com that will tell you up to the date. Like right now, there's 10 players in the major leagues that are Jewish. And he'll give you Jewish players all the way down to single A ball and rookie league. But anyway, they're always researching, talking to family members, making sure players, if they were Jewish, they didn't convert or change religions or whatever. And in recent years, it's been come to known that the family may have converted to be Baptist. So now he's been taken off the list officially of Jewish players. And I don't know if Dan still has this card, but it might be only worth about $5,000 or $10,000 now instead of maybe $100,000–$200,000 card. So just an interesting story about how much people will pay for these cards, because there's a lot of Jewish cards, and I think Sean's going to show you a good reference book on these cards.
Yeah,
some of them are very rare, and they will get extremely good amounts of money. And then there's also stories about how it's always a fluctuating list, and some people might say, well, are they not? It's not that big a deal, but people, when they get this specified in collecting on a collection, this sort of thing does is important, and that's just an interesting story. I'd like to know if he still has the card or where it's gone since then. And but no, I thought that was a pretty hilarious story for probably the most famous Jewish baseball card in existence, right there.
I would say the Phil Weintraub 36 Worldwide Gum, though. That's probably the most famous as being the discovered one. And I mean, it's been years, but no one knew it existed for a long time. Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah,
It's
isn't that
hard
a
to
short
find, and it's getting very pricey. I bought that probably 5-6 years ago. But even then, they don't pop up. You might see one every 2 or 3 years, and the prices are going exceedingly up now. So it's just, I think it's the last card issued in that set, if I'm not mistaken. And there's been stories about it too, why it doesn't pop up as often. But very tough card. So you're right on that too.
Now, Mike, what do you think of the other cards that are of Jews that has an impact on baseball? Because you have cards that are owners, umpires, things like that, in various sets. Would you consider those part of?
Definitely. I mean, there's a million ways to collect just Jewish players. If you get into minor league players that didn't make it to the major leagues, then it increases probably tenfold of how many player cards you can get just of the players that had an appearance in a major league game. I limited it to that just so I'd have a manageable number. And because, I do Hank and Johnny still, there's just so much to go around, so to speak. So you have to you have to kind of set limits. So I'm sure you probably have quite a few minor league cards, Sean, I would think.
Well, that and, someone that wasn't even in baseball had an impact on baseball.
Oh.
Is Abe Attell.
Yep.
I know, Mike, you recognize it. I don't know, Brian, if you recognize the name.
Wasn't he involved in the Black Sox scandal?
He was the enforcer for the mob during the Black Sox scandal.
Yeah.
But that's his boxing card, 1910 Hassan cigarettes.
So cool.
That's beautiful.
The enforcer.
Wow. Very nice. Sir.
That's so cool. Well, I think it's interesting that, and I've kind of gotten the sense that like Jewish baseball card collecting or just Jewish sports card collecting is a pretty big deal. People are really competitive with it, and I think kind of like harkens back to like the origins of Jews in the States, trying to adopt the national pastime and learn about the game and the players, and kind of cultivating to, the stardom of Hank Greenberg and then Sandy Koufax, and sort of celebrating their success, their own success. And I think it's almost like, not like in the nature of Jews, but kind of in the nature like of the way that we are maybe sometimes, of being like collectors and like appreciating the things and like the treasures. And so I think like card collecting and Judaism kind of have a lot of similarities.
It's in the details. I think it's pretty important. But though, it's interesting when all the immigrants, a lot came over to New York. When Hank first started, being a baseball player is considered being a bum by Jewish families back then. You wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer or something. You didn't want your son to play baseball. That was not good. And what even Hank had to go through to get able to get out of college and have his parents' blessing. It wasn't until they offered him a contract that his father finally relented and said, take the money and go play baseball.
Yeah. But that's after he turned down a contract from the New York Yankees.
Sure, yeah. Well, he saw Lou Gehrig and he said, I'm not going to be playing first base anytime soon. So that's why he went to Detroit.
I'll use this as a segue for everybody. So I have this one ticket. This is Hank Greenberg, first game in New York.
Oh,
wow.
That is beautiful. What game was it for him? I think did it say on the.
This was his 7th career start. Wow. His first game at Yankee Stadium.
You see, I love stuff like that. I love programs, ticket stuff, anything that relates to something.
And I'm pretty sure we all have this or had it at one time.
Well,
I do have that.
Yeah. Why that card isn't worth a lot more money, I don't know. I think that's a very significant card right there. Beautiful.
Yeah. I love that card.
I'm the premier first baseman
But it's funny, so his choice was either you can go to New York and try and replace the gentleman in the middle, or you go to Detroit and replace this guy. It was the starting first baseman for Detroit just before.
Well, that's right. Wow, that's pretty cool. I've never seen that one before. Huh. That is very cool.
What kind of Sean? What do you know? What kind of career Harry Davis had?
He didn't have much of a career. I mean, he was basically a fill-in. I mean, but prior to, the Tigers at the time were basically rebuild mode. I mean, Hank was part of that rebuild. You have Hank, you have Gosselin, you have Gehringer, you have all these guys coming in. Let's see, I'm trying to remember the names off the top of my head. And then they really kicked into high gear when they hired Mickey Cochran. So here, just to make it a little bit easier, you can go through the 34 roster. Pretty much on that.
That is beautiful. That is so awesome.
So, 1934, you have Pete Fox, Mickey Cochran, Schoolboy Rowe, Wrecker. These are just ones I can read off the top of my head. Flea Clifton, Larkin. There's a whole. It was a turning point. It's not just the manager; it's the players you're bringing in, and really, Hank was a key piece in doing that. And then also his willingness to move to the outfield when he did.
Yeah,
that continued that build up of that team.
Yeah, he was the first player, I believe, to win MVP at 2 different positions. I don't know how many players have done it since. I doubt there's very many at all.
I think Robin Yount was the next player to do it.
Yeah, that's quite a span of time.
Correct.
So, yeah, I agree. That's great. I love that. That's beautiful, Sean.
Imagine being like the individual to like walk up to all the players at the time and like have them sign so neatly just below each other. It's probably a kid, 10, 12 years old, and Mr. White, Mr. Greenberg, Mr. Gehringer.
Well, it's the one thing that I think for me, we all have our holy grail of kind of our Greenberg collection. And what's the one thing we still don't have that we would want? The one thing I would want is one of the baseballs he signed with his Hebrew name.
Of the what?
One of the baseballs he signed with his Hebrew name. He used to sign baseballs in Hebrew for some of the
Did he really?
For some of the Jewish kids in Detroit.
Wow, I'd love to see that. I didn't know that even existed.
Me neither.
I've never seen one. I've heard the stories of it.
Wow.
Well, that's the thing is the family is so, all of them have done well. They don't need money, so you don't see any of this. I mean, nothing on the market at all. They saw that one signed check. That's the only check I've ever seen of his. I don't know how they got that, but it is that was an 80s check. So it's amazing how tight a grip they have on all his stuff right there. Remember, I showed you that one video where at one museum they gave a uniform, a jersey. It's the only jersey I've ever seen outside anywhere. It's incredible. And they're all rare, but it's just, except for if I saw anything besides a bad relic, I'd be very skeptical, especially if it's a Panini, of course, but I'd be very skeptical of its authenticity. Just don't believe it.
Well, Michael, at the National, we held his hat, remember? Like in our hands from Golden Auctions.
What was it, like 35,000 or something crazy like that?
Yeah. It was so small, too. It would only fit on the top of your head. It would not go over it.
I think that, and the other kind of thing that I think is more in reach for me, and I don't know, Brian, if you'd be interested in it, but is to get one of his signed yearbooks. That signed Hiram Greenberg.
Yes, that would be amazing. I've seen that one. The one with just a picture has been on eBay for as long as I've been collecting them. I think it's been $1,000 ever for 12 years now.
Yep.
And that's just a picture, and it's amazing. Part of the eBay museum, as we like to call it.
That's true.
Yeah. That's the only yearbook I'm missing.
We gotta fix that, Sean.
You'll find it. Yeah, gotta fix that.
If only we had someone in New York to track down some of these local yearbooks.
So now it's my responsibility.
Well, he is from there, sir. It's up to you.
You're right. I have to go to all the libraries and check out all the yearbooks that look like they're really old, maybe falling apart, and just check and make sure that they're not signed by him.
Okay, go back 2 years later. Sorry, I lost it. What's the penalty?
Yeah, I'll pay the penalty. Or Sean will pay the penalty.
Why don't you show some of your cards?
Yeah. I mean, talking about like the rarities and things that no one and this chat or maybe even otherwise have seen, at least to my knowledge, is this card. This is the 1939 Worldwide Gum V351B. So originally issued as a 39 Gaudi R303A. And as you can see, the top and bottom borders are cut. And people hypothesize that it was done this way because if they had the borders, they would otherwise not fit in the distribution packages that the Worldwide Gum Company used. And so these were factory cut, to fit. I found this in an LCS that I went to the first time in New York City. And I think the coolest part about this is on the back, it says in French, Detroit League and American, in French. I'm not going to try to, pronounce that in French, but it's possible that the owner of this car was French Canadian. And I think, SGC PSA refused to authenticate or slab this because of just how rare it is. And I think that's a load of crap. But, it's I think we all know its true history and its origin. So this is something that I'm super proud to have, something that I've never seen before.
Yeah, that is awesome. In fact, I'm thinking of getting the dimensions from you, and the second one I got, I might trim it to look just just to so I have one. It's like that's the real deal, especially with the French on the back. That's just perfect. That's just perfect right there.
I think sometimes the best part of card collecting, and I think the three of us kind of share the same sentiment, and probably many others, is the stories that kind of come with that. Like, I had a story about buying this card and the research that went into it, but also there's a story because of who wrote on the back of it. And who that person might have been and where they would have lived, and who knows? We can only think about what that might be.
Oh gosh, yeah, that's a part of the fun is thinking about those sort of things. At least I do all the time. I love the history of things. John,
want me to show something else?
No, okay. Go ahead.
All right.
I can watch all day.
Well, someone else will say something next time. Michael will know this card very well.
Oh yeah.
We were bidding in the same heritage auction, and two of these probably signed at the exact same time came up for auction. This is a 1940 play ball signed by Greenberg, and it is what we call a period signature. So this was probably signed around 1940 or 1941. And Michael has the twin. Yeah, there it is. Michael has the twin brother right there, and it's probably the best specimen I've ever seen of his. That's a good shot of his signature right there.
All right. Well, if we're gonna match the same time period, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Nice. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a great piece, Sean. I love that. But it was funny when these were ending. Michael and I had kind of agreed to, he would go for the 39, I would go for the 40 because that's what we both needed for our collections. And I think when the auctions were ending, we were like, "Oh my God, what have we done? We've just spent $700+ on these cards." And for at that time, that was a lot.
Oh yeah.
Looking back, only 4 years. Like, I don't know what that card, is worth right now. But it was funny to kind of like think about like our temporary financial pain that we had when those auctions were closing, because it was almost like lamenting that we won. We were happy that we won, but we were almost like, oh God, like what are we really doing here? And that was
than a period signed piece. That's my favorite. And I think those two being in the same auction almost have to have been signed probably at the same time by him to one collector. So probably yours was signed in 1940, I would think. And my 39 was probably signed in 1940. So yours is probably signed around that date because he didn't use that signature much later than that. So that's just an incredible sig there. And John, the one you got there, I love those type of cards there. Those are great.
Yeah, 39 World's Fair.
Yeah, it's just so interesting to connect players to other things besides baseball.
And it's not filled out. He signed, it's a blank one that he signed.
Is that like an award to a person, or?
It's basically for those kids that wanted to participate in the Academy of Sport. So there's two different players that signed these, and then they would get one, fill in their name and everything. This one was just never filled out. It was never good. The kid never touched it, or it got put in a stockpile or something. But the only real mark on it is there's a little tape mark on the back, which I am absolutely okay with.
Yes, to me that kind of stuff's insignificant completely.
Yeah,
but it's funny.
You never find another one, so.
But it's funny with you guys. Kind of, we've all I think each one of us have gone to, after the same cards and stuff like that. Less so now than before we started communicating, but I have to show this one.
Oh, so
it's not period, but
so
I think Brian, you and I made offers to this guy, and for some reason, he accepted like this crazy low bid that I gave him.
What was it, like $300 or something?
It was somewhere between $400 and $500.
Oh my God.
But I just, we all know you can't find the 4-in-1 signed at any time.
No. You can easily put a 1 in front of that now, I would think.
So, but this goes to show, like, even now with the prices going absolutely insane, there's still cards that go out, because the other most recent one I got, Brian, you let me know at like 2 a.m. that this guy posted it for like $500. It was a no-brainer. Buy it now.
So cheap.
Why couldn't have I had insomnia that night? I'm glad you got it, Sean.
But like, I always tell people, I say, especially if something has make an offer on it, always make an offer. And if you're going to make an offer, write a note with it, either explaining your offer or stating that it's going, this is part of your collection. Sometimes, a lot of times it's not going to do anything, but sometimes you do get that one card, that one key card you've been trying to get for a long time.
You've been the king of that, Sean. You've had some amazing deals like that.
Hey, I'd just be honest with the seller. Like, if something's going in my collection, it's going in my collection. And I tell them, I say, I'll message them and say, look me up on YouTube. You can see what I collect. It's completely transparent. And you can see what I'm going to sell. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
It makes a huge difference, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Because if people think they're selling it to somebody that's a collector and not going to flip it on them, I think they're much more comfortable doing that. And in fact, I think some people, if they know it's a rarity or a tougher to find version, some want to get the most money possible, but some of them want to see it go to a good home too.
Yeah.
It does make a difference.
Yeah, and sometimes just people list stuff for crazy prices, and you just got to jump on it. We've all done that.
Yes. Oh yes.
It's like the only reason I have the
Dynasty.
2019 Dynasty 101. They listed it for like $250.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm going to jump on it.
I like those cards. It's just hard to say. It's all down to the auto for me on those type of cards. If you can find one with a vintage signature, that's the way to buy those. But it is nice because they are all one of one. So if people would collect the 5-star or transcendent or whatever, it's always going to be in demand. That's for sure.
And then,
do you guys have this card? This is from 2006. Michael, do you have this cut?
Oh yeah, I've got all the SPL except for
this is numbered to, this was numbered to 21. This is probably the best cut design, I think, that he's. Well, I would say one of the best. I think he's got a few really good ones, but there's like this like gold foil around it, and they did a good job of like framing the signature. Michael, this was the this I actually bought. Remember that that lot of it was 2 cards. It was that cut and the 34 Gaudi SGC5. I paid $550 for it. It was like it was back maybe like 2014, and I got it in the mail, and I'm like, Dad, look at this. He's like, oh, how much did you pay for it? I was like, $550. He's like, excuse me? And I'm like, yeah, I know, but trust me. Trust me.
That's good.
Well, Michael, let me give you a little segue. This is the last on-card playing days card I have signed. All right. So there's my 39 on card, and I'm pretty sure you have a few more to go with this.
Yeah, I've got 5 right now. I actually forgot about one. I got a sample coming back from PSA.
Man,
so I got,
what a card that is, though. That signed
sample. We got the black. That's the first one I ever bought with Brian at the National.
That was so much fun.
We got the green. Now, green signatures are my favorite. As I always say, green for Greenberg. Even though Brian likes the new SGC holder, I like the old green ones myself. The red, and then the vintage.
In blue, right?
I get the one back from PSA. Yeah, I have the sample signed too, so it's a red ink, I think.
Yeah, I only have the brown one.
Well, we have to work out a deal for that, sir. I first, though. But go ahead, Brian. Go with the next one.
Oh, I guess what? Guess I can show. I mean, the signed Gaudi.
That is amazing. I know that story well, but you might want to tell everybody that one.
Well, if you're familiar with my channel, you should know. But if this is your first time here, I guess this was 2018, right, Michael?
I think so. Yeah.
National 2018. Michael and I were standing in line on Wednesday, waiting to get into the show, and we were, I guess, part of like the first 50 people. And we struck up a conversation with a couple of gentlemen from Buffalo, and talking about what each other collect, and sharing like what we're at the show to do and what we're looking for. And when as we were getting closer to the front of the line to get in, I shared that I only collect Hank Greenberg, and it kind of startled one of them. They were like, "Really? Like that's all you do?" And He's an autograph collector. And his name's Rick Ryder. And I'll never forget his name. He's like, I think in my collection I have one of his small cards. It's green and blue. I think I have that one autographed. And I'm like, okay, Rick. Well, that sounds like his 34 Gotti rookie card. I mean, that's a pretty important card. It's like my grail. I would do anything for that card. Like, yeah, I'm not sure. I have no idea what condition it's in. And I'm like, listen, Rick, like, I would love to at least just see it. Let me know. So I guess that might have been. Was that Wednesday or Thursday? I don't remember. It doesn't matter. It might have been Thursday.
Yeah, I think it was the second day. Yeah.
Friday, I ran into Rick during the show. Oh, hey, Brian, how's it going? Yeah, I thought more about that card, and I'm pretty sure I have it, but, like, again, like, I really don't know what condition it's in. It's probably beat up. I don't know how the signature is. I'm like, Rick, you know what? I just want to see the card. Like, if you can find it, I would love to see it. Here's my phone number. I never thought I'd hear from him. Michael and I were sharing the hotel room. He was in, I guess this was like 7:30 in the morning, and he was in the shower. And I get a text from Rick, and it's just a picture of the card, the little card, all trimmed, autograph faded. And I'm like, oh my God, look at that. And I'm like, Michael, screaming at him in the shower. And, we were trying to figure out how to value it, because there's not a card like that around in the condition it is and the signature faded. So, I told him, Rick, like, if that card was good and the signature was good, we're looking probably at around $2,000, $3,000. Like, yeah, I know, but, I mean, what do you think? So I'm like, I don't know. Like, what if we could do a trade? I can replace that, in your collection. He said, okay, like, I like this kind of thing. And I showed him some things. And then he said, you know what, throw out like a cash offer that would be a really, really good deal for you. I'm just like, okay. How about $300? He said, okay, so $300 and plus the card to trade for the signed Gotti. I said, yeah, He said, $300 is too much. How about $100? I can't even complete the story without laughing. It was just unbelievable. And that's when I started screaming and jumping up and down and yelling and and whatever I was doing. It was all a blur. And I mailed him a check, mailed him the signed postcard when I got home to New Jersey, and got the card a few days later, and the rest is history.
Well, the funny part to me was after you got it, I remember you telling me, I really missed that postcard. I really liked that postcard.
Yeah, I did really. I did really miss it. It was really cool. Someone had typed out on a typewriter the stats that he had from 1934 and left like a really cool space for him to sign, like on a line with a little X. He signed it, and it was slabbed and encased. It looked really cool. That's probably the only thing like that. And, this is the only one like this, too. So I guess it was a fair trade. That was a great national day.
That was a wonderful. Yeah, that was amazing. I couldn't believe I was standing there watching all this happen. It was like,
yeah.
It was just like you said. It was like, oh, that's too much. I mean, it was just crazy. It was like, he was such a nice guy. He was just such a nice. Because he was going to try to scam you completely, or he was really a super nice guy. There's no in between on that type of thing. Because it's like, can he really say things like, "No, 300 is too much. Give me $100."
Yeah. Well, I think it shows the sign that he was a true He is a true collector, and he was wanting to just replace what he had lost in his collection, and wanted to help out a fellow collector or something that he didn't want as much.
Yeah. And I think you'd just be standing in line, waiting to get in the national, and meet somebody that's got that card. I mean, it's incredible.
If we were 5 minutes early or 5 minutes late, we would have never. That would have never.
Yeah. It's those little things that make all the difference in the world. Sometimes.
Unbelievable.
Amazing story.
But you guys should show some Hank cards, maybe tell some Hank stories.
Yeah, let's hear some of your Hank stuff, Sean. What's some of your favorite collecting moments with him?
Let's see a favorite or two.
I think that, one of the more interesting ones is I think I was looking at one of the newspaper stamps online, and I finally put two and two together that, Michael, was your eBay account. I reached out to you going, yeah, I want this. Yeah, but a lot of my stuff has been, it's been interesting because, the three of us, we've pretty much coordinated. We kind of know what each other needs, and like, I know the latest two editions for mine were the Worldwide Gum and OPG, because
what a night that was.
PWCC had some like crazy amount of cards, and other stuff. Unfortunately, they end like 10 seconds apart, and you can't win everything. But yeah, I managed to get those, and I think, Brian, I can't remember if you got anything. I know, Michael, you got at least one larger card.
I got the Menzer.
Yep.
But yeah, you did awfully well on that. To get those two, and I thought very reasonable prices myself.
Yeah.
Very reasonable.
Yeah, I had top bids a lot higher than both of those because I went the last two main ones I needed.
I agree with you. Ending all those auctions around almost the exact same time is not the best way to do those things. And you would think a company like that would know better than that kind of stuff.
And my luck, I've never really had good luck with auctions. I'm much better at negotiating a best offer situation. And that's when I can go back and forth and try and get what I want. But I had the one that I didn't pull those cards out. The one I did pull out, which got for an equally insane price, was the batter up, the blue batter up PSA 7.
So nice.
Which, for some reason, didn't get the bids on Heritage.
That was Heritage, right?
Yep, Heritage auction, and I think there's only like two of us bidding on the card, and the other person wasn't really, I guess, into it. So finding anything, you guys know, finding anything of this age for the 7 is kind of crazy, especially for like under $1,000.
Well, it's gone. Brian, we've been doing this. I've been collecting for 12. You've been doing a lot longer than me, Brian, but it's just dried up in the last year or so. There's just very little out there. It's all been picked up and it's in collections now, and you're just not seeing it very much. Heritage had that string of a couple auctions where they were selling all these 8s and stuff, 7s, 8s, and it's just a rarity now to see anything pop up.
Yeah, that seems to happen like once a year. They just auction like all of those really super high-end vintage cards like once a year. It kind of saved them, I think.
And then here's
auctions. I don't even see any Hank cards being sold. Everything's like in complete sets or partial sets, and you very seldom see any vintage Hank by itself being sold in one of them, even the REAs and places like that.
And then, Michael, here's an interesting one, being, since you collect a variety of Jewish players, because we already talked about Lou Boudreau being kind of eliminated from the list. There's a 1972 top. Hank Greenberg at the top, Al Newhouser, and Lou Boudreau. MVP.
I love the Newhouser. You don't see much of his stuff at all. That's a nice card there.
Pick this up.
What kind of card? Is that?
It's a 1972 top.
Huh. That is
nice. MVP award card.
I have not seen anything like that before. Beautiful. That is beautiful. I guess maybe we should talk about baseball, Jewish baseball. We're kind of having a Hank Love Fest right now, but
I know. Yeah.
Here, I can go through a bunch. I know, Michael, you can go through a bunch. But
I can look at give a little history of the Jewish baseball cards.
So I'm going to start with, you want to just kind of, I can go through, I can cover 33 to 70s. I'll go back.
Some of the early stuff going back to 1910 and up. So tell me about the book, though, because that book is an excellent resource.
Awesome.
It's interesting.
Yeah, the book that I held up earlier. Well, first, let's just address this one, too. Anybody that wants Jewish baseball players, that card set is still available on eBay because they don't produce them anymore. In 2003, they did some update sets, but this will give you, so 2003. Yeah, 2003. This is a 142 card set of Jewish baseball players, and they've since obviously added a bunch of players to that. I actually just did a video on both of these. So. And then the Jewish baseball card book goes through. This is up to 2018 is when this was put out. So much more recent. But this will give you, let's try and go to.
Such a cool book.
It is an awesome book.
I think that Jewish Major Leaguer set should come out with like an update set in like 2021 and just like get everything from 2004 to present.
Well, that first set he showed was put out by, that's actually Fleer backed them when they did that set.
Yeah.
After that, they did it themselves privately and sold the sets privately. But they stopped doing them around 2016 or something.
This gives you a good idea, at least far away. They'll go through player by player. This is Sammy Bone, formerly Sammy Cohen. And that'll give you a bunch of his different cards. Both period cards, but also it'll show some of the reprints throughout the book. And some of the cards that are used as reference in this are actually the cards from this set because it's the only card that exists of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'll just say that set you're showing was the first set I ever bought way back in the day. And I modeled my SGC registry set. I tried to get one card of every Jewish major leaguer. And if they didn't have an official card in their career, I used a card from that set as their card for my registry set. So I've got like about 20 or 30 of those cards slabbed just to have an example of the player card. Because for a lot of them, that's the only card that exists, especially for the early players. I'll go through just a few, and then you can pick up, Sean.
Yep.
The earliest I got is a player named Cooney that played for Spokane for the Northwest League in 1910 T212.
That's the coupon, right? The coupon cigarettes.
Yep, it's a cigarette. And I can finish showing these, Sean. I want you to talk about this guy if you want. He's one of my favorite early players named Barney Pelty. This is a 1910-11 Sporting Life.
Yep, the Yiddish Curver.
There you go. What I love about this card is he got the collar turned up. They got him with white skin and rosy cheeks. He looks like a vampire to me in this card. So another great player of the early days. This is the 1916 Erskine Meyer. And this is the 1918 Z-Nut. Z-Nut was, baseball, Major League Baseball west of the St. Louis didn't happen until the Dodgers and Giants moved in the 50s. So back before then, all the players on the West Coast that played in California and such were in sets called Z-Nuts, which were Pacific Coast cards. And there's a few players that played there that went on. Wasn't DiMaggio, didn't he start?
He was Pacific Coast League, yeah.
Yeah. And this is the 1918 of Menzer. I got that auction Sean was talking about.
Yep.
Wow.
That's the coupon. If you find them with coupons, they're worth a lot more money. And this is 1925 Phil Weinert. These are really nice cards. These were And this is a 1927 Z-Nut Jimmy Reese, who was in baseball forever.
Yeah, he had a
Michael,
1990 Bowman card.
Look at that bend on his leg. That's just amazing to me. How his leg didn't snap when he on something like that.
yeah,
But that's a nice representation of the early players. One of them missing for the Obach is a player called Moxie Manuel, which is in your book. And when I got that book, Sean, that was the first time I ever seen that card. I've been looking for that for 12 years, and I've never seen it. I think Brian showed me an auction. One went for like $4,000 or $5,000 a few years ago.
yeah, I remember that now.
That's probably before the guy's in story. It's probably probably the hardest to find player card of all the Jewish players would be that Moxie Manuel of Obach. It's in the Southern League, and it's the same one. Ty Cobb, I think, is in that same series, and it's like just super rare. You just can't find it.
Well, that one is still in that super rare category, just like the Weintraub was for 36 Worldwide Gum, and the Jim Levy for the Orbit issue as well.
That's a tough one.
And Levy's an interesting one because he was one of the first two-star athletes. Because he was also a fullback for the Pittsburgh then Pirates of before NFL for professional football.
I didn't know that about him. Very good.
I don't have any cards. I have his auto though.
Wow.
Yeah, that's tough. I guess we are to segue into the next big one, which would be Koufax. I'm sure anybody might be watching this would be interested. Probably know more about Sandy than anybody, I would guess.
I know some super collectors that know a heck of a lot more than I do, but I'll go over some of the. I picked out, I guess, about 10. Starting off, this is the cheap rookie card version, 1955 Golden Stamp. And that is 7.
Sean, is that an expensive card?
The Golden Stamp, no. These go for crazy cheap. Definitely a lot cheaper than this.
What
55 top. That's beautiful. And these have gone crazy price.
Yes, they have.
The other Koufax cards that have gone absolutely insane are any signed Koufax card. So I'm lucky enough I have a 1960 that's signed.
Oh, wow.
So cool.
That is awesome, sir.
And these are all pen signatures, too.
Wow.
Or on the vintage cards. There's a 1964 signed.
Oh, that's beautiful.
I think that's my favorite of his cards.
And then here's the 1965 signed.
Wow.
Have you had those a while, Sean, or were they recent pickups?
What was that?
Have you had those for a while, or are those recent pickups?
I've had these year and a half, 2 years. So
Wow.
perfect example is, this 65. I've seen Sharpie signatures on vintage cards go for $1,000 for Koufax. I bought this one for I bought this one for $200.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
What?
Yeah. And it's actually a pretty well centered version too.
Jeez.
And then 1966 was his last card. And I have the Venezuela, but I didn't pull it out. I had 66 and a 7 top.
Wow.
And then the 66 OPT, 3.
Wow.
And then just like Hank, there are some modern releases, primarily autos. This one was crazy because this is 2016 Topps Transcendent, numbered to 15 of 52.
Oh,
9
Beautiful.
10 auto. Paid $300 for it. This one, I was shocked when I got this one because this was a card that was listed buy it now or best offer. So I made the guy an offer, turned me down, decided to take it to auction. I paid $20 less at auction for it.
I love it.
Signed printing plate, 2019 Topps Tribute.
Oh, wow.
Wow. That's so cool.
I love signed printing plates. I think they look good.
So, $250. I think I offered him $275.
That's crazy.
That's great.
But one thing I wanted to go over is some other Jewish players.
Before you do, can I tell my one Sandy Koufax story I like about being a Jewish player?
Yeah.
He's in 1965 World Series. He was supposed to pitch Game 1, and being gone before, he decided not to play that day. So instead of him pitching, the pitcher was Don Drysdale. And there you go. And
Wow, look at that.
Don Drysdale he pitched Game 1 because Sandy decided not to play. After 3 innings, the Dodgers were trailing 7-1. And Walt Alston came out to the mound to take him out of the game. And the alleged comments Don Drysdale told Walt Alston was, "I bet you wish I was Jewish too, don't you?"
Oh man, that's great.
Now, whether that's true or not, people have said yes or no, but that is one of the greatest one-liners I've ever heard. Right?
That's great.
All right, so one thing I've been trying to find, obviously I can't do it for the rare players and cards, but I like to try and get at least one autographed card from every Jewish player. So the one exception, because he was the mentee for Hank Greenberg, is Ralph Kiner. So 1955 Bowman auto, because Hank brought him to the Indians in 55. That's the one exception I have. All right, so starting off, I'm going to go starting with the most recent, 75 Ron Blomberg, Yankees. First DH in baseball history.
Yep, that's right.
Johnny Klipstein, who's actually really hard to get on-card autos. 55 Bowman. Phil Weintraub, which you mentioned before. This is a reprint card, but it's still on card. Cal Abrams, who bounced around but was most known for being part of the Brooklyn Dodgers.
Signed vintage is so awesome.
Sid Gordon was actually an all-star player, fantastic outfielder for the New York Giants. There's his signed rookie card.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's nice.
48.
Yep,
Nice.
1948. This one came up for a crazy price, and I jumped all over it. Then one kind of small run I recently completed. There's 39 Harry Danning, four-time All-Star, New York Giants. There's a signed 39.
It's a tight auto.
Very underrated player.
There's a signed 40. And I actually have 2 signed 41s.
No, that's
Whoa.
awesome.
That's so
He's
cool.
probably the most prolific signing Jewish player I ever saw.
Probably.
Really?
And then, of course, I have the 41 paper to go with that. And that's a pop 8. That's lower than Hank.
Wow.
And then Al Schacht, original Clown Prince of Baseball, 1940 play ball signed. And then the one guy that was traded in 1927 for Rogers Hornsby, Andy Cohen. Very well-known card in Jewish collecting circles. This is a signed copy of his rookie from 1933 Galaxy.
What's the story behind the card?
So, the interesting thing with the 33 Cohen Gowdy, even though it's his rookie card, it's about 5 or 6 years after he played his last major league game. He was brought up by the New York Giants because they wanted a Jewish star player. And so they brought him in from the New York Giants, and incredibly athletic player, all the talent in the world. Started off his debut really well. to the point that I think it was the Miller Huggins at the time, I think it was manager of the Giants. Decided he was that
John McGraw?
Might have been John McGraw.
Or Joe McCarthy? I don't know, one of those two.
One of whoever's managing the Giants basically decided that they would trade, because they played the same position, Rogers Hornsby to make room on the roster and then the lineup for Andy Cohen.
Wow.
And then he proceeded to get injured many, many, many times and never recovered. So he only has 2 actual major releases: the 33 Gaudy and 1960 Top coaches card for the Phillies. Now he has other cards, minor league cards, which I have some of those, but that was the one signed one I wanted to bring up. And then again, another one of the players that Michael mentioned earlier that kind of been eliminated from the list. And I was showing Brian this earlier. So Buddy Meyer, 1933 rookie card with the cut signature on the bottom. Which these are just fun cards in general.
Oh yeah. Brian, you always wanted one of those Hanks, I think.
I know.
The thing is, that's the copyright card for that particular baseball card.
So
oh, that's cool. That's very cool.
This is the original copyright that they filed from the Library of Congress for this one baseball card.
Imagine if that was for Hank. Oh,
yeah, I wish. I'll take the Andy Cohen too.
Yeah.
And then one of the other rookies from 33 is Mo Berg.
That's beautiful.
So there's a SGC 3 for the dog and a PSA 4 for the Worldwide Gum.
Has to be.
You just got another one.
Definitely one of the most interesting Jewish players by far. We can do a whole video just on Mo Berg.
Well, I tend to pick up Mo Berg, especially autos, when I can. So I managed to collect 4 raw checks, ranging from 1943 to 1954, and I have 1 slab check from 47. And then I just stole this one off of eBay, which came with the JSA cert. The guy little cut signature. But got it for
good gracious.
But Berg's an interesting one because there's one of my favorite cards. Not this one. There's 2 at SGC. So 1929 Passion when he's at the Chicago White Sox. And that's in a 4.5. Then there's a 35 National Kickball when he's with the Red Sox. So one of my favorite cards of all time, which I actually have 2 copies of, is this postcard. 1934, Tour of Japan, American-Japanese postcard.
Oh, I've seen that. That is cool. Wow.
So I have it in a 4 and I have it in a 5.
Oh wow.
But the interesting thing with this card is it has obviously all the authors. It has Papers, Lou Gehrig, the huge names, and then Mo Berg. Now folklore has it that this is the trip to Japan when Mo Berg went up on top of the hotel and took a picture of the skyline of Tokyo, which he later gave to the OSS at the World War II. And they used it as recon in order to coordinate their bombing runs.
It's a great story. I remember the movie came out a little while back, and I wished it would have been more popular because he really deserves to have his story told. That's for sure.
And actually, I'm pretty sure I showed you guys pictures of this too, and I've had it in a video before. But part of a big lot I did, this is one of Mo Berg's books from his library.
What?
So this has, from his library, his stamp in it,
Whoa.
and it has all of his notes in the margins and everything.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's unreal.
it's brilliant. Didn't he speak like 7 languages and?
So reportedly, he spoke 7 languages. He was the OSS officer that was charged with shadowing Heisenberg to determine whether the Nazis were close to developing an atomic bomb. So they sent him to Switzerland to attend a conference at which Heisenberg was speaking. He was sent with a revolver, a cyanide capsule, so that if he thought they were close, he was front row. He was supposed to shoot him and pop the pill. He determined at that time that they weren't close, so he didn't have to do it.
That's amazing.
And this is a guy that,
frightening.
a Princeton graduate, stayed in baseball, even though he had, he probably shouldn't have. And when he was originally signed, first with the Brooklyn Robins and then with the Chicago White Sox, he worked out the deal where he didn't start the season until 2 months into it, because he went and got his law degree. So he was in school, then would go play baseball. So now one of the interesting things is, I'm going to try and see where he is. So I have a couple different yearbooks, but there's his Princeton baseball team picture.
That's awesome.
And let me point him out here.
Sean, how did you find something like that? Like, how do you? Where did you buy that?
So he's right here. This I got on eBay. So the Berg ones, they knew what they had. So this is the 1920. He graduated in 23, and they're generally a year or two behind in posting the sports photos. So I have 24 and 25 for Berg. I have Koufax's 55 University of Cincinnati yearbook, as well as his student directory, 54-55. Koufax there.
That's awesome.
They didn't
So I
know
think someone saved that.
the yearbook. They knew what they had. The directory, they had no idea what they were looking at.
Wow.
Some of the more obscure players that I collect, so like Morris Arnovich, he was an all-star player. This is his 1930 Superior, Wisconsin high school yearbook.
Sean, did you get that clay ball that ended the other day? That really sharp one?
No, I did not.
Damn.
Now this was the fun one though, because this one the person didn't have any idea what they were selling. This was a 1941 from Florida Military Academy. They didn't realize that Al Rosen graduated in 1941, Florida Military Academy.
Wow, look at him.
And he had the nickname Flip back then too. But all these tabs in here, he was a very active individual. Those are all pictures of Al Rosen in the 41 yearbook.
That's great.
He graduated in 41, went into the military, served in World War II, then went to minor league baseball.
What were you telling me about Morris? What his Jewish little factoid?
Which one?
For Morris Arnovich?
Oh, so Morris Arnovich, the interesting thing with him is he's the only player that we know of that kept kosher throughout his life, including when he was in major leagues.
Can you imagine how hard that must have been? That's crazy.
He also died in 1959, so his autos are very tough to get. I have a couple on-card auto cards and a couple little pieces here and there I'll be able to pick up. But he was an all-star in 1939, Gabby Hartnett was the manager for the 39 National League All-Star team and did not play him. Now, there's two kind of schools of thought on it. One is that at that time, you played your best team for the All-Star game. The other side of it is everybody knows that, was it the 35 World Series? Was it 35, I think? Yeah, 35. Gabby Hartnett was one of the biggest instigators of Hank Greenberg during that World Series. And there's those most anti-Semitic people making comments on the field. So to have an observant Jew on your All-Star team, the likelihood he was going to play was very slow. It was very slim. He was leading the league in hitting at the time. Arnovich was. And he never saw the field. It was the only All-Star game he made. He later would serve in World War II, and he couldn't recover after the war. He couldn't play anymore.
What a shame.
Yeah, it is. Well, even Hank didn't think in 45 when he came back, he didn't know whether he could still play or not.
Yeah.
He really thought his career was over with at that point.
Yep.
So, I mean, it took a toll, that's for sure. Keeping kosher while playing in a baseball team and traveling around the country like that?
So there's Arnovich. Got to pull these out. There's Arnovich on the 39.
Wow.
Play ball.
Wow.
Those are amazing pieces. I love the yearbook, Sean. Those are fantastic.
And then there's the 1940 play ball Arnovich.
That's awesome.
Again, because he didn't live as long as some other guys, he's much, much harder to get on anything signed. And actually, buying one of his autos was the impetus for me getting a rather large Greenberg and Bergholz, including the book and those checks. I actually bought a 39 Philadelphia Phillies signed envelope, first day issue. And I flat out asked them, which I tend to do with everything I buy, do you have anything Hank Greenberg or Mo Berg? And this guy did. So then he started texting me, showing me pictures, and we eventually made a deal. And I think that one deal I got, the Berg book, 3 checks, and I think 11 or 12 Hank bottles.
It's crazy. That handful of checks you got is just incredible. So
Unbelievable.
His rookie, I mean, his signature is not easy to get, and you just pull out a handful of them.
I have a total of 6 or 7 Mo Berg autos.
That is nuts.
Sean, when did Arnovich die?
1959.
Here's a couple more. I'll add to your cards you showed that are harder to find. This is a 1934 matchbook cover of Ike Goldstein. These don't post up very often.
Yep.
Where did you see
it? This guy had a very small career, but this card, I got this years ago. I don't see this ever anymore. This is a Jonah Goldman that played in the early 30s. And this is a 1931-32 exhibit that's got him on the card. And that year, the exhibits, you'll see them like in red, orange, all different tints. But if you're looking for Jewish players, this Jonah Goldman is, I haven't seen one of these in years on eBay. Years.
Wow.
So that's not a card you hear talked about, but that's a tough one to get. If you can find that one, grab it, because it's probably won't be expensive just because nobody knows that. That's the one thing good about some of these obscure players is that they're important for your sets, but the public doesn't know much about them. But it's like you said, even like on those yearbooks and stuff, if you know what you got, you can get a premium because some people that need the card or the yearbook or whatever are going to shell it out if they have to, because these things just don't pop up that often. But other times you don't get great deals because nobody's aware of who they are.
Michael, why don't you show some of your just to like backtrack to Hank, because we kind of like bypass your like actually both like the both of you guys both have Hank cards probably at your desk. Why don't you guys take turns?
I showed all but one of mine throughout our conversation.
Oh really? I must have
Yep.
blinked out.
I mean,
Michael,
I
I
guess
know you have some Hank cards there on your
I
desk.
see the last one I pulled out. This is a 2015 Leaf Executive Collection masterpiece. 1939 Tigers, 1 of 1. Hank up top.
Yeah, I remember you got that. That's a beautiful one.
And auto back too.
That's awesome. It's so cool that they made it like that.
Oh, they're beautiful. As far as being Jewish, this is an interesting one. This is from 2010 Top Sterling. This is a booklet card. This has got plain white jerseys for Ryan Braun and bat pieces for Hank. It's numbered out of 10, but it's a card you'll never hardly ever see on eBay.
Yep.
This card here, because on the back, it'll say, Greenberg and Braun are heroes to the massive group of the game's fans in the Jewish community. Hank weathered brutal anti-Semitism in his day to average 38 home runs in his 8 full seasons. Ryan Braun, also known as the Hebrew Hammer, hit 34 per year from 2007 to 2009. And I just got the impression that based on the little talking about their Jewish ancestry, that when these came out, these have been snapped up, and I haven't seen one of these in years on eBay.
Yep.
It's not anything. I mean, if you just look at it, you wouldn't think it's anything particular. But if you see a card like this card, grab it because this is rare as can be type thing. It's interesting. There's some, just like in anybody collects anything. There's Jewish collectors. When there's not enough to go around, there's plenty of people out there looking for it, and short printed things like that get snapped up, and you'll just never see them again type thing.
Well, and it's ongoing. So, I happen to have this on hand. So, 2020 National Treasures, number to 10. Hank.
I love that card.
It's really nice.
You got 2 of them, sir. Come on.
Oh, don't worry. We're working something out.
This is also a really tough one. This is numbered to 50, and there's actually one on eBay now for like $50 or so. So Sean, if you need this card, you gotta scoop this up.
Yeah.
This is numbered to 50, and you never see this.
No.
And this also, Michael, you were mentioning about the Jewish bio, or like the speaking of their heritage on the back. This also has a pretty good write-up. It says, although their careers are separated by 60 years, Greenberg and Braun each have garnered notoriety for his prolific power and share a common Jewish background. Hank, who slugged 331 home runs in a dozen seasons for Detroit and Pittsburgh, was the first Jewish inductee to the Hall of Fame. Ryan, whose father is Jewish, piled up 103 long balls in just 3 seasons.
Yeah. I'll go ahead and
2009, 2010 tops.
And here's the 2 Ryan Braun cards that, if you like Jewish, this one's a 2012 triple threads, and it says Hebrew Hammer. It spells out. And then he has a non-signed version. And I just love things like that. I think that looks really cool. I think was it Rosen that was called Hebrew Hammer, Sean, or?
At one point, I mean, he was so injured that it's hard to get him on the field. So
he was so good.
I really tell now. The interesting thing with Rosen is, well, Greenberg and Rosen were very similar in that it was, if you said a lot of things, they would go right up to you and say it to my face, and they'd probably pop you. Greenberg did that on several occasions. Rosen actually stated publicly that I'll give you 2 chances. 3rd time, I'm going to go up and I'm going to deck you. And he was a Golden Glove boxer. He was on the boxing team at Florida Military Academy. You did not want to mess with that man.
Yeah. One thing we should mention too, when Hank was playing, was the history of Detroit in general. With Henry Ford was a known anti-Semite. There was a Father Charles McCaughlin, I think his name was, that used to preach anti-Semitism on a radio. I mean, this was broadcast on radio.
Yeah.
And I think, did Ford write the book, The International Jew? I think that's the name of it. And
it was a nationally syndicated broadcast.
Yeah.
And where he essentially blamed all the world's problems on Jews. And Hank played in that city. Now, the other thing, what Hank was interesting to me too was that when he first started playing, people called him a Jewish player, and he didn't resent that, but he said, "I want to be known as a great baseball player, not a great Jewish baseball player." And he said in later life, after retirement stuff, he thought more about it, and now he's glad. He said he was glad he was known as a great Jewish baseball player. Just because he realized how important that was to the fans and other people that watched the game. And it kind of makes sense when you're young. You want to be considered the best in the game, not the best Jewish player or best whatever player in the game. And remember, during World War II, he said every time in '38, he was saying every time he hit a home run, that was like a home run against Hitler type thing. And he really evolved that understanding of why people put so much importance on him because of his background. It really dawned on him why, whereas at first I probably didn't understand that completely, I would think. And I'll show this real quick. The closest thing I'll ever get to having a Hank game used bat is my little Hank Greenberg bat barrel here.
Amazing.
Yeah. That was an amazing opportunity, but
well, you cultivated it.
Yeah, I guess that's what you call it. I got lucky.
You did.
But yeah, it's just and the players today. It's just a continuous evolution of the game and of the players, and there's probably more. I don't know. I guess the golden age of Jewish players was probably the 30s and 40s. Would you say, Sean?
30s, 40s, 50s.
50s. Yeah, there was quite a few that played back through that period. Well, you got, Sean? Show us some more.
I got one last thing, and I got to get going though.
Oh, okay.
But here, since we talked about Rosen and we didn't really show anything, found this postcard signed along the top. But the nice thing is it's postmarked September 10th, 1956. So you know exactly where it's coming from. You basically decide to hang it up pretty much that.
I love stuff like that.
So was he injured quite a bit, Sean?
Yeah, I think I have a couple of photos where he broke his fingers. He broke his nose for the 13th time while I was in the majors. He had problems with his knees, with his, he just broke down. Between being a boxer, military service, and playing all out, his body just wore out incredibly fast.
Yeah.
He did win an MVP, though, right?
1953.
Hank was a dual MVP, but he lost all those years to World War II, and people forget he lost essentially all of 1936 to injury also.
Yep.
Yeah, he broke his wrist.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much he did in such a short period of time. I mean, over his career, I think I can say on the card, he averaged 38 home runs and something like 130, 40 RBIs every year he played. It's incredible.
That's like Albert Pujols level.
Yeah, I mean, he easily would have had 500 to 600 home runs if he played. And even after he came back from service, in 45, he led him to the World Series. And then in 46, he led the league in home runs again. I mean, it's amazing after missing all that time and he came up and essentially picked up right where he. And then when they sent him to Pittsburgh, I really think he just lost the drive to play at that point. I think he would have played if he was staying in Detroit. I think he probably would have played 2 or 3 more years. I really do. I think he just didn't want to play, and he got that opportunity to be a general manager, and he just took it and walked away from the game. I've never seen a picture of him in a Pittsburgh uniform where he looked real happy. It's really strange. It's really strange.
The things I like to think about are, like his career was so much in between, like a couple of really major baseball card issues. Like he just missed 33 Gowdy. He also missed 33 DeLong, 33 George C. Miller. Like some really beautiful cards.
Oh,
And then
Butterfinger?
he missed Buttercream. And then on the back end, he missed the Bowman sets. He's not in 48 Bowman, and you're right, Michael, if he had stayed in Detroit, he probably would have been in those sets, just like DiMaggio was in 48 Leaf and kind of carried like the Burke Ross even like carried that like through the end of his career. And I mean, Hank missed like some really important cards.
I never thought about it on the back end. But yeah, you're right, exactly. But 33 would have been amazing, wouldn't it, if he would have been in that?
Yeah, but then he would have, shared with Ruths and the Gehrigs and the Foxes and the Otts of the world, and that was just a loaded set already. I'm sure Gowdy wanted to get him in, but he probably couldn't get the licensing fast enough or whatever. I don't know.
All right. Rashawn, do you need to get going?
Yeah, I need to get going.
It has been wonderful talking to you guys. It's good talking to you straight face to face, so to speak, Sean.
And we'll have to do this again at some point.
Let's do it.
We all definitely have plenty more that we can review and show off, and there's probably going to be a few more pickups and trading going on in the near future.
Yeah,
Yes.
Thanks for having us on, Brian.
Well, it was a pleasure. I'm glad this worked out so well. And
I enjoyed
Rick,
it.
thanks for all the support, Rick and Ray and Triple V. Remember the greats, like all these guys in the comments. Abel. Hope everyone watching enjoys the video, and we would love to do it again. So if you want to see something specific, let us know what you want us to talk about, and we'll do it. All right, guys, I'm going to end the broadcast here, and we'll let Sean carry out the rest of his day.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Take care, you all.
Talk to you soon.